Hi and welcome to another KWM tasting note with me, Andrew. Today we're trying Mora and Memo's Cannonau di Sardegna from Sardinia here in one of the Italian islands, of course, in the Mediterranean. Cannonau is the grape variety, which is also known as Grenache. It's kind of indigenous to Sardinia. It'd be the key red grape variety in that part of the world. Now this particular estate is run by Elisabetta Palla, so it's female owned and run. She took the reign from her father in 2013 and she's based in the southeast of the island down around here with a nice exposure about 200 metres above sea level along the coast. Vineyards based on limestone and clay, and that's quite important at the minute because right now we're in July here in Northern Ireland where I'm filming this, and Sardinia is expected to hit something like 48 degrees in the next day or two. It's one of the hottest times Europe has ever experienced, and Sardinia is right in the middle of that heat as well. So clay is very important when heat is so intense like this, because what it does, it retains moisture in the soil. So it acts as a bit like a sponge during the wet season. Soaks up water deep down, and then it can transfer that back to the vines when there's drought conditions, so it's good for retaining water. It's not very good when there's lots of rain about. It can be too wet, and the vines will suffer as a consequence as well. So as the world warms up, clay soils are very important for keeping vines healthy. So in those extreme heats, what can winemakers do? So I guess as the climate has warmed, winemakers are becoming more attuned to it, where they will have maybe more canopy over the grapes, so they'll grow more foliage to help protect the grapes from the sun. Realistically, there's not much they can do when it sort of hits all of a sudden in those sort of heat spikes, but they can sort of work in advance of it and have sort of more foliage cover and protection that way, and then if they don't need it, they can trim it off closer to harvest and ripen the grapes. But in order to protect them, so they'll do a bit of that sort of that foliage cover and things like that. So this here, Cannonau di Sardegna, it's 2021 vintage. Made close to the sea, quite higher altitude, so it benefits from a little bit cooler sort of climate up there. Completely unoaked. Sees about 6 months in stainless steel tanks on its lees. Spends a few more months on bottle before release. So it's a very clean, precise version of the Grenache, as opposed to having oak in there to add different layers of complexity to it. Now, lovely colour to it as well. Grenache, we know, is like a thin skin grape variety, so it doesn't take an awful lot of colour. But it's a lovely sort of medium ruby colour going into that slightly garnet edge. Now it's only still approaching 2 years old, so it is still pretty young, but Grenache is one of those grape varieties at the minute which is very trendy, very on point right now. In fact, actually, Grenache in Australia these days is achieving more per tonne than what Pinot Noir actually is, and Shiraz and Cabernet and everything else. So it is the hot and happening variety. The poor man's Pinot, as it's sometimes known. It can be sometimes wishy-washy, but I really do enjoy a really good Grenache. So colour-wise, we talked about. Nose on this here is a lovely sort of soft spice to it, sort of baking spice, sort of red fruited character to it. Maybe slightly red curranty. Doesn't have any of those jammy notes. It's more of that sort of fresh cherry sort of elements going on. Sometimes Grenache can get a little bit too hot and too jammy on it, but this is lovely sort of restrained nose, very fresh fruited, lovely touch of spice to it. Absolutely gorgeous palate on this. It doesn't have any of the hotness of Grenache that it can sometimes get, even though it is 14.5%. It's super well integrated. Really well balanced, beautifully smooth tannins, very mellow on the palate. Nice acidity in there, just to integrate it all together. This for me is a really good example of top-notch Grenache right now. It doesn't cost the earth either. It's not expensive. It's sort of maybe 15-16 quid, but this for me is where it's at right now. It's got that lovely balance of fruit, spice, without being too hot. Lovely glass of wine by itself. You could even slightly chill this glass of wine as it gets warmer outside. Will suit antipasti, sort of starter dishes, things like that. Pizzas even, you know, it could be quite a nice match for it. Lovely glass of wine. If you've never tried the wines of Sardinia, do try them. The Cannonau is the top red variety. Vermentino would be the top white variety there. We typically have the Vermentino from these guys as well, but it's actually out of stock right now. But the Cannonau is superb. Do try it, I must say. Yeah, until next time, cheers.